We're now going to have a look at object snap tracking. Now, in order for object snap tracking to function correctly, we must make sure that our object snaps are switched on first. So let's go down to OSnap here on the status bar, right click, and this time we are going to go to Settings. Once we've selected Settings on the shortcut menu, we need to make sure that object snap tracking is ticked here. You can also click the OTRACK button on the status bar. What we're also going to do is we're going to make sure that our midpoint object snap is on there as well, because we're going to utilize that as one of our object snap tracking points. So we click on OK now, and that is now all set up and ready to go. Now we're going to utilize the midpoint of this line here and the corner here of the arrow to place a line that goes from the corner of the arrow in line with the midpoint, and then it's going to join this line here. Now let's do the top one up here first, which is obviously handed, it's reversed. And all I'm going to do is utilize the line command. So I'm going to go to line. Now when you're using object snap tracking, you can have up to 7 object snap tracking points in place at any given time. As soon as you select an 8th point, the first object snap tracking point that you selected drops off the radar. So you can only have 7 concurrent object snap tracking points. Now we're not going to have that many in this particular exercise, and it's very rare that you will. But let's have a look and see how it works. First point of my line is easy. I'm going to click on the corner there of the arrow. Now what I need to do is, as I come out, I need to track from this point here. So I hover over the end point again and just hover. I don't click on it. I then hover over this midpoint up here, and again I don't click on it. Just hover over it for a couple of seconds. As you come down now and drag the crosshair down, look. Can you see it lock off there like that? That is your object snap tracking point that intersects between that midpoint and the end point of the arrow. I then left click, and because I've already got those 2 tracking points in place, this point that I've just selected by left clicking is also a tracking point. So as I come down, it'll track until I get an intersection with that line there. I then left click again, enter to finish, and I've drawn all of that without any construction lines at all. Isn't object snap tracking fantastic? It makes your life so much easier. Let's do the other side now. So we'll do the same again, line command. We select the bottom end point here of our arrow this time, and as we move away, we then come back again and hover over that point there. We then come down here to the midpoint of the line here. Again we hover, we do not click. And as we drag upwards, there's our little intersection point, our intersection of our 2 object snap tracking points. I then left click, that draws the line to that tracking point. I then track upwards until I get an intersection here. I then left click again and enter to finish. And as you can see, I've now drawn my lines using object snap tracking only. Now, let's have a look at placing 3 more lines using object snap tracking. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go to the line command. I'm going to hover over this endpoint here. I'm then going to hover over this midpoint or endpoint here. It's an endpoint of the arrow as well. And as I come in this way, can you see my little intersection there? I left click. Notice I didn't have to actually put any construction lines there to get that exact midpoint for the start point of my line there. I now come out this way. I track upwards to this midpoint here. And as I come downwards, there's my intersection there, my object snap tracking point, left click. What I'm going to do now is draw that line up to there, just using standard object snaps, left click on the midpoint, enter to finish. I then draw one more line to finish from that endpoint there to that midpoint there, and enter to finish. So as you can see there, object snap tracking, object snaps work hand in hand to allow you to work quickly, productively and effectively.